What if I told you that one man not only captured a real, living Sasquatch on film, but backed it up with undeniable physical evidence so precise that top scientists declared it impossible to fake? The Paul Freeman Bigfoot footage, captured in 1994, stands as a cornerstone in the annals of cryptozoological evidence, offering compelling support for the existence of an unrecognized primate species in North America. This video will delve into the intricate details surrounding the footage, the life and credibility of Paul Freeman, the significance of the associated track casts, and address skeptical viewpoints with substantiated expert analyses, particularly from anthropologists Dr. Grover Krantz and Dr. Jeff Meldrum. Background of Paul Freeman. Paul Freeman, born August 10, 1943, was an American cryptozoologist whose unwavering dedication to Bigfoot research left an indelible mark on the field. Before immersing himself in the pursuit of this elusive creature, Freeman served as a U.S. Forest Service patrolman, a role that provided him with an intimate understanding of the wilderness areas of the Pacific Northwest. His journey into Bigfoot research commenced on June 10, 1982, when he reported a close encounter with a large, hair-covered, bipedal creature standing approximately 8 feet tall near Walla Walla, Washington. This experience ignited a fervent passion, leading him to dedicate over 2 decades to the systematic investigation of Bigfoot sightings and evidence. Despite facing skepticism and personal hardships, including professional ostracism and public ridicule, Freeman remained resolute in his quest, contributing significantly to the body of evidence supporting the existence of Bigfoot. The 1994 footage, capturing the elusive. On August 20th, 1994, during an expedition in the Blue Mountains of northeastern Oregon, Freeman captured what is now referred to as the Freeman footage. The video begins with Freeman documenting large, human-like footprints embedded in the mud, characterized by distinct dermal ridges, a feature challenging to fabricate. As he follows the trail, the camera abruptly shifts, capturing a bipedal creature covered in dark, shaggy hair, walking upright approximately 50 yards ahead. The creature's fluid gait, natural arm swing, and visible muscle movement beneath its fur suggest a living organism rather than a person in a costume. Notably, Freeman's audible reactions, marked by palpable surprise and heavy breathing, underscore the authenticity of the encounter.
Get up here where I'm seeing you quick.
Some analyses of the footage suggest the presence of a smaller figure, possibly a juvenile, accompanying the larger creature, adding a layer of complexity to the sighting. Analysis of the track casts. Freeman's meticulous documentation extended beyond visual recordings to the collection of physical evidence, most notably plaster casts of footprints associated with his sightings. These casts are distinguished by their detailed impressions, including dermal ridges, patterns akin to fingerprints found on the soles of the feet. The presence of such intricate details has been a focal point in the analysis of their authenticity. Dr. Grover Krantz, a physical anthropologist at Washington State University, conducted an in-depth examination of these casts. He observed that the imprints contained features such as dermal ridges and skin whorls, which are exceedingly difficult to fake. Krantz noted, quote, "The ridges are clear and match the flow pattern found in primate feet, including humans. The likelihood of these being artificially created is highly improbable." His analysis led him to consider the possibility that these tracks were genuine, providing substantial evidence of an unknown primate species inhabiting the region. Dr. Jeff Meldrum, a professor of anatomy and anthropology at Idaho State University, also scrutinized Freeman's casts. In his book, Sasquatch: Legend Meets Science, Meldrum discusses the anatomical nuances present in the casts, such as pressure ridges and toe splay, which align with the biomechanics of a living foot. He emphasizes, quote, "The dynamic signatures observed in these casts, including the distribution of pressure and the flexibility indicated by toe movement, are consistent with a functional anatomy, not characteristic of fabricated imprints." Meldrum's assessment underscores the complexity involved in replicating such features artificially, thereby bolstering the argument for their authenticity. Benny Kling, a fingerprint expert with Wyoming law enforcement, also analyzed plaster casts of footprints discovered by Paul Freeman. Kling concluded that replicating the fine details of dermal ridges present in these casts would be extremely difficult, if not impossible, for someone attempting to fabricate Sasquatch tracks. He stated, quote, "Anyone who could engrave ridge detail of such quality should be counterfeiting money instead." After examining the tracks a second time, he changed his mind, stating firmly that no one could have faked the tracks. tracks, addressing skeptical claims. Skeptics have posited several arguments challenging the authenticity of Freeman's evidence, primarily focusing on allegations of hoaxing, misidentification of known animals, and questions regarding Freeman's credibility. A thorough examination of these claims, juxtaposed with expert analyses, provides a robust counter-argument: allegations of hoaxing. Critics suggest that Freeman fabricated the footprints and the accompanying footage. However, the intricate details present in the track casts, such as dermal ridges, would require not only advanced knowledge of primate dermatoglyphics, but also sophisticated techniques to replicate. Dr. Krantz addressed this skepticism by stating, quote, "The level of detail and anatomical correctness observed in these casts would necessitate a comprehensive understanding of primate foot morphology, and access to materials and methods capable of producing such precise features, resources and expertise that are unlikely to have been available to Freeman." This perspective is further supported by the consistency of the casts with known primate anatomy, which would be challenging to fabricate convincingly. Misidentification of known animals. Another argument posits that the footprints and the creature in the footage could belong to known wildlife, such as bears. However, the bipedal gait and the distinct anatomical features observed in the footage and casts do not correspond with those of bears or other regional fauna. Dr. Meldrum's analysis highlights that the foot morphology evident in these casts differs significantly from that of bears, particularly in aspects like toe configuration and heel structure. He notes, quote, "The footprints exhibit a pronounced arch and heel impression that are inconsistent with the plantigrade foot structure of bears. Additionally, the toe arrangement and lack of claw marks further discount the possibility of these being bear tracks. This assessment underscores the improbability of misidentification, as the observed features align more closely with an unknown bipedal primate. Freeman's credibility. One of the primary points of contention among skeptics is Paul Freeman's personal credibility. Critics argue that because Freeman was so deeply invested in Bigfoot research, his enthusiasm may have influenced his findings, potentially leading to exaggeration or fabrication. However, this argument does not hold up when considering the consistency and independent verification of his evidence. Freeman was not a fringe believer or someone seeking fame. He was a U.S. Forest Service patrolman with extensive experience in the outdoors. His work required him to track and identify wildlife, making it unlikely that he would mistake common animals for something extraordinary. Furthermore, Freeman's findings were not just personal anecdotes. They included clear physical evidence, such as track casts that were later examined and endorsed by respected scientists. Dr. Grover Krantz defended Freeman against such accusations, stating, quote, "The physical evidence Paul Freeman presented, especially the footprints with dermal ridges, shows a level of consistency and anatomical realism that defies simple hoaxing. These are not the work of an amateur prankster, but rather the traces of a real biological entity." Krantz, a tenured professor with a specialization in primate morphology, staked his professional reputation on the authenticity of Freeman's evidence, a decision that he would not have made lightly. Similarly, Dr. Jeff Meldrum, one of the foremost experts on primate locomotion, found Freeman's evidence compelling. Meldrum states in his book Sasquatch Legend Meets Science, quote, "Paul Freeman's footprints exhibit anatomical nuances that are biomechanically sound and consistent with a living foot. These features, including pressure ridges and mid-tarsal breaks, are not something one would expect to see in a hoax. They bear hallmarks of genuine biological function." Freeman's reputation also gains credibility when considering the long history of Bigfoot sightings in the Blue Mountains. Multiple witnesses, including experienced hunters, law enforcement officers, and researchers, have reported encounters with similar creatures in the same region. The corroboration of Freeman's findings by others further weakens the argument that he was simply mistaken or deceptive. The Freeman footage in the context of Bigfoot evidence. The Freeman footage is often compared to the Patterson-Gimlin film of 1967, widely regarded as the gold standard of Bigfoot footage. While the latter is more widely known, Freeman's video shares a unique quality with it, in that it is accompanied by physical evidence. track casts analyzed and authenticated by experts. This dual-source verification strengthens the case for its authenticity. Furthermore, Freeman's footage shows specific anatomical traits consistent with what primate researchers expect from a large bipedal hominid. Dr. Meldrum has commented on this, stating, quote, "The subject in Freeman's footage moves in a manner distinct from that of a human in a costume. The flexion of the knee, the swing of the arms, and the relative proportions of the limbs suggest a biological entity with unique biomechanics, not someone attempting to impersonate an ape. The footage, coupled with the casts, creates a body of evidence that meets the standards of scientific scrutiny. While no single piece of evidence can prove Bigfoot's existence definitively, the Freeman case presents multiple lines of evidence that converge towards the same conclusion: something large, bipedal, and unknown to science left behind these tracks and was recorded on film." Addressing the lack of body argument. One frequent argument against the legitimacy of Bigfoot evidence, including Freeman's, is the absence of a physical specimen. Skeptics argue that without a verifiable body, the case for Bigfoot remains speculative. However, this argument is fundamentally flawed for several reasons. First, it disregards the well-documented challenges of recovering remains from an elusive, potentially intelligent species living in vast, remote wilderness areas. Second, it assumes that no physical specimens have ever been documented, when in reality, a scientifically examined body of an unknown hominid does exist, the Minnesota Iceman, the challenge of finding remains in the wilderness. The argument that no Bigfoot remains have ever been found ignores the fact that large mammals, including known species such as bears, mountain lions, and even moose, rarely leave behind skeletal remains in the wild. Decomposition, scavenging, and environmental factors cause organic material to disappear far more rapidly than most people realize. Scavengers such as wolves, coyotes, rodents, and even insects strip carcasses clean within days, while acidic soils in many forested regions accelerate the breakdown of bones. Dr. Jeff Meldrum has addressed this issue in Sasquatch Legend Meets Science. Quote, "The argument that we don't have a body, therefore Bigfoot does not exist, is flawed. In my field research, I have encountered very few intact skeletal remains of bears, even in areas where they are known to be abundant. Nature recycles organic material efficiently, making the preservation of large animal remains a rare event. In other words, the lack of widely acknowledged Bigfoot body does not equate to the non-existence of the species. If well-documented animals, like bears and cougars, seldom leave behind skeletons in the wild, it stands to reason that an intelligent, reclusive primate, possibly capable of deliberately avoiding human contact, would be even more difficult to recover. This understanding is further supported by forensic studies on decomposition. Research has shown that in temperate forests, a large mammal carcass can be reduced to unidentifiable fragments in a matter of weeks. In some cases, scavengers will carry bones away from the site entirely, scattering remains beyond recognition. The relatively few hominid fossils in the fossil record demonstrate that primate remains are particularly rare due to their exposure to such factors. The Minnesota Iceman, a body that was ignored. The claim that there is no physical evidence of a Bigfoot body is also demonstrably false. There has been at least one documented case of a preserved hominid specimen that underwent scientific examination, the Minnesota Iceman. The Minnesota Iceman was a 6 to 7 foot tall, hair-covered hominid encased in ice and exhibited across North America in the 1960s and 1970s. Its body displayed multiple features consistent with an unknown primate species, including large ape-like hands and feet, distinct facial features different from both modern humans and known apes, and a visible wound, suggesting that it had been recently killed. What makes the Minnesota Iceman case especially significant is that it was examined and formally documented by two highly respected scientists. Dr. Bernard Uvelmans, a respected zoologist and considered by many to be the father of cryptozoology, examined the frozen body in person and concluded that it was a genuine specimen of a previously unknown hominid species. Dr. Ivan Sanderson, another renowned zoologist and naturalist, independently studied the Iceman and corroborated Uvelman's findings. Dr. Uvelmans published his analysis in Cryptozoology, the Science of Hidden Animals, where he stated, quote, "Every anatomical detail I could observe was consistent with a biological entity. The structure of the hands, feet, and facial proportions were not those of a human or any known primate. The hair patterns and muscle structure suggested a hominid adapted for life in cold conditions, not a hoax or taxidermy creation. Why the Iceman matters for the Freeman case. The existence of the Minnesota Iceman provides direct refutation of the claim that no body has ever been found. A scientifically analyzed, physically examined, and well-documented hominid specimen was found, but it was ignored by mainstream institutions. This raises an important question. If a Bigfoot specimen were to be discovered today, would it receive proper scientific scrutiny, or would it be dismissed out of hand like the Iceman? This question is particularly relevant when evaluating Freeman's evidence. The same dismissive attitude that led the Iceman to being overlooked is what prevents Freeman's track casts, video evidence, and years of research from receiving the full attention they deserve. The reluctance of mainstream academia to engage seriously with evidence outside of conventional zoological paradigms does not diminish the value of that evidence. Instead, it highlights a broader failure in scientific methodology, one that has historically overlooked and later validated discoveries that initially seemed too unconventional. If one scientifically verified hominid body has already been ignored, how many more pieces of crucial evidence have been overlooked or dismissed without serious examination? Why Freeman's footage deserves more scientific attention. Despite its compelling nature, Freeman's footage has not received the level of mainstream scientific attention that it warrants. The reluctance of the scientific community to engage with Bigfoot research is often attributed to the stigma associated with cryptozoology. However, as Dr. Krantz argued, genuine scientific inquiry should not be constrained by preconceived notions of what is or is not possible. Krantz famously stated, quote, "If these footprints were found in Africa, accompanied by reports from local villagers, they would be taken seriously by anthropologists looking for an unknown hominid. But because they are found in North America, they are dismissed outright. That is not science. That is bias." This highlights an essential flaw in the way mainstream science approaches evidence of unknown species. The Freeman case presents a golden opportunity for further research, particularly using modern technologies such as DNA analysis and LiDAR scanning of remote forested areas. Skeptics often demand physical evidence, yet when it's presented, whether in the form of detailed track casts verified by experts or even a preserved hominid body, it's dismissed outright. How can we claim to seek the truth while ignoring the very evidence that demands investigation? Conclusion: a compelling case for authenticity. The Paul Freeman footage, supported by his meticulously documented track casts, presents one of the most formidable cases for the existence of Bigfoot. Freeman's background as a U.S. Forest Service ranger, his extensive fieldwork, and the endorsements from esteemed scientists like Dr. Grover Krantz and Dr. Jeff Meldrum lend substantial credibility to his findings. Skeptical objections, while necessary for rigorous scientific evaluation, fail to provide a plausible alternative explanation for the evidence Freeman presented. The level of anatomical detail in the track casts defies simple hoaxing, and the creature captured in the footage exhibits biomechanics inconsistent with a human in a suit. Moreover, the absence of a body, while often cited as a counterpoint, does not negate the validity of the physical and visual evidence collected. As Dr. Meldrum summarized, quote, "Science should follow the evidence, not dismiss it because it does not fit within current paradigms." Freeman's evidence provides a compelling case for further serious investigation into the Sasquatch phenomenon. Until mainstream science takes a closer, more rigorous look at cases like Freeman's, the question of Bigfoot's existence will remain open. However, for those who analyze the evidence with an unbiased perspective, the conclusion is increasingly difficult to ignore. Paul Freeman captured one of the most authentic glimpses of an unknown primate species ever recorded. Well, there you have it. Solid scientific reasons why the Paul Freeman footage and track casts comprise some of the strongest, most compelling Sasquatch evidence compiled to date, predictably ignored by most mainstream institutions. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, share it with your family and friends, and subscribe to Cabin in the Woods. And if you want to show me extra support and contribute to future projects, I'll leave a link to my Buy Me a Coffee page in the description below. Thanks for watching.